Let's go ahead and get to news. The U.S. Supreme Court handed down two big decisions for Montana on Tuesday. The first says the state cannot move forward and prosecute a cold case rape suspect from 1987. Ronald Tipton is accused of raping an 8-year-old Billings girl. Last fall, the Montana Supreme Court unanimously decided to drop the charges against Tipton. Montana Attorney General Tim Fox was hoping to overturn a 2003 Montana law that forbids filing rape charges after the statute of limitations has expired. Tipton was charged with the rape after he was arrested in 2014 on an unrelated charge, and his DNA matched the Billings child rape case. Tipton appealed the charges, and the Montana Supreme Court agreed, citing the statute of limitations. In this case, the statute ended in 2001, 5 years after the victim turned 18. Fox reached out to the victim on Tuesday and thanked her for her bravery in coming forward, saying it paved the way for other victims of abuse.
There's only about 5% of the cases that come before the Supreme Court are actually accepted. So in the back of our minds, we knew that this was an uphill battle, but we think strongly that, again, the law needs to catch up with the science. And when children are raped and the DNA evidence identifies a suspect, we believe the law should provide for the ability to take that suspect to trial.
Another man, Jimmy Ray Bromgard, was convicted and served 15 years in prison for the crime, but he was released in 2002 after DNA evidence proved he didn't do it. In another ruling by the Supreme Court, Montana's law requiring that those spending money on elections disclose where those funds are coming from won a major battle. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of Montana's Disclose Act, denying an appeal by a group called Montanans for Community Development. The organization sued after the Disclose Act was passed in 2015, arguing the new law was an unconstitutional restriction and burden on their rights free speech. The appeal went all the way to the Supreme Court, which denied MCD's argument that only major purpose groups could be required to disclose to Montanans who was trying to influence their votes.
Led the way for the last century in making sure that elections are decided by people, not corporations, and those that want to spend have to actually demonstrate where that spending's coming, and we'll continue that fight.
Governor Steve Bullock worked with both Democratic and Republican lawmakers to help pass the Disclose Act in 2015. Now we go to Sydney, where a coal-fired power plant will see its end at the end of 2020, or depending on the Westmoreland coal bankruptcy case, even sooner. Montana Dakota Utilities says it's planning to close the station in Sydney and 2 other units in North Dakota. The company cited rising costs and increasing competition from natural gas and newer wind farms. The plant is supplied by the nearby Savage Mine, which is also caught up in Westmoreland's $1.4 billion bankruptcy case. MDU officials say the plants have served their communities well over the years, but they're now getting too expensive to operate. MDU is planning on starting a natural gas-fired plant to capitalize on fracking in the Bakken. Billings voters have said no to the 3 Billings high schools since 2007, when the last operational levy was passed. Now, School District 2 Superintendent Greg Upham is recommending that the school board goes back to the voters this coming May. It's been more than 10 years since the high schools have seen any kinds of upgrades in books, tablets, or online tools, and Superintendent Greg Upham says now it's time. The levy would raise taxes up $10 a year for homes valued at $200,000. Upham says that would allow the district to keep pace with other high schools in our neighboring cities. He told Q2 that most of the curricular resources are online, which is where a good chunk of the money would go.
We do buy classroom sets of textbooks for those students who don't have access to technology at home, but the tablets are replacing the actual textbooks. So the costs are very similar. The licensing needs to be updated. We just haven't been able to keep pace with what I would consider a healthy cycle of curriculum adoptions. This allows us to go after the funding that's there under the funding support system for schools. That if we're successful in passing the levy, that upwards of $1 million for high schools.
Upham said the money would also go toward workplace coordinators in the high schools. It's part of a district initiative to get students thinking about and taking part in potential careers while in high school. From the 66th session, a proposal to help expand high-speed internet to more of rural Montana went before lawmakers Tuesday in Helena. Senate Bill 239 from Republican State Senator Jason Ellsworth of Hamilton would exempt any new fiber optic cable from all property taxes for 5 years, and full taxes on that fiber would then be phased in over the next 5 years. Telecom companies strongly supported the measure, saying it would help offset the cost of installing broadband for high-speed internet in rural Montana. They also said it would help expand cell phone service to parts of the state without it. Ellsworth told the Senate Taxation Committee his bill will bring long-term benefits to all communities.
How do we keep businesses chugging along? How do we keep them growing? This is the way. I mean, this is the future. At the end of the day, without fiber, without high-speed internet, you know, our brick and mortar businesses will no longer be brick and mortar businesses. This is a solution.
The Bullock administration came out against SB 239, saying it would cost local governments as much as $19 million in lost revenue by 2023. Local governments opposed the bill too, calling it yet another exemption, narrowing the property tax base that cities and counties rely on for revenue and driving up taxes for everyone else. It's now up to the committee to decide the next step for the bill. A newly renovated wing at St. Vincent Healthcare aimed at making treatment easier and more comfortable for the hospital's littlest patients is up and running. On Tuesday, doors officially opened for the new pediatric intensive care unit. Before the updates, the PICU was just one room with a curtain to separate each patient. Now each patient has a room big enough for their families and medical staff. The rooms are also wired so doctors from the Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City can assess the patients here in Billings and potentially avoid leaving the state. The $3.2 million project was funded through the St. Vincent Healthcare Foundation. Rebuilding efforts for the Sperry Chalet in Glacier National Park are underway, but at 6,000 feet high, access to the site is limited, so a local flathead photography company is stepping in to help. After this historic landmark was destroyed, Flathead local Adele Scholl knew she had to help. That's when Glacier Park Conservancy approached her. With the elevation, architects were having trouble working on designing the reconstruction. With her knowledge of aerial photography, Scholl and her partner Jeff took some of the first pictures of the chalet the winter following the fire. Architects now use these photos to create blueprints and designs for the rebuild. But Scholl tells us getting these photos is not easy.
You have to compensate for the movement of the aircraft and also filming through the windows. So that combined, you kind of lose shutter speed when you're up there. And doing video is even that much harder because you're moving and then you're vibrating with the aircraft.
With the help of Scholl, the chalet is expected to be complete by next summer. Back here in Billings, two big names in heavy metal and hard rock are coming to the Rimrock Auto Arena this summer. The Twins of Evil tour featuring Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson will make a stop in Billings on July 25th. This will be Marilyn Manson's first appearance in the Magic City in his 30 years of performing. Tickets will go on sale this Friday at 10 in the morning, and tickets range in price from $39.50 to $99.50. Also announced on Tuesday, Rock Meets Country as the Steve Miller Band and Marty Stewart will take the stage in Billings this summer. The artists will play at the Cove Creek Outdoor Pavilion August 16th. Tickets will be available online this Thursday, and you can find a link on our website at ktvq.com. Wrapping up our news, Montana's 2019 Youth of the Year comes from Billings. Michaela Shariki with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Yellowstone County is this year's recipient. On Tuesday, Michaela and the other 5 finalists were honored at the Montana Legislature. That's Michaela. She's in the gray and red, second from the left. Youth of the Year is the highest honor a Boys and Girls Club member can receive for showing values of leadership and service, academic excellence, and healthy lifestyles. Michaela advances to the Regional Youth of the Year competition later this spring. She plans to head to Black Hills State in South Dakota after she graduates from Billings Senior. There are 17 Boys and Girls Clubs across Montana providing services to more than 13,000 youth each year.